Hi everybody, welcome to Right to the Top. I'm Adam. In today's video, we're going to think about the word complex. What does complex mean? Now, this video is based on a question I got in the YouTube comment section. Somebody wanted to know how to introduce more complex sentences into the writing, into the essay writing, or maybe even task one. So it got me thinking, and I think this is a very important topic, and the reason it's very important is because many people don't realize that there's a difference between a complex sentence and a complex structure, okay? And when you're reading the official scoring rubric from IELTS or TOEFL, both of them want to see some complex sentence structures, especially for the grammar score, okay? So we're gonna look at that a little bit today. We're gonna look at complex sentences, complex structures, and basically how to condense simple sentences. Now, before I get started on this, you should also realize that there's a difference between simple sentence, compound sentence, etc. So a complex sentence. I did make a video about sentence variety, which you can find up here, a link to. You can go watch that. There's a bit more details, more examples. Today I'm only going to focus on the complex sentences and the structures, okay? And I explain to you what the graders are expecting from these words. Let's start with a complex sentence. So in terms of technical construction, of the technical structure of it, it has one independent clause and one or more dependent clauses. And the dependent clauses are adjective clause, adverb clause, noun clause. So it's a sentence that has at least two clauses, one independent, one dependent. You can have as many dependent clauses as you want. As soon as you introduce another independent, means two independents joined by a coordinating conjunction, and, but, or, so, etc., now you have a compound complex. So I'm not going to look at that one today. We're going to stick to the complex sentences. In an adjective clause, the standardization results from a lack of creativity and an adventurous spirit, which makes every type have a similar. Which makes, that's basically your adjective clause. Technically, you have a complex structure here because you have the word make, the good and service have. This is called a causative. I'll talk about that in a minute. But you have a very simple one adjective clause, one complex sentence, one dependent clause. Moreover, there are a number of challenges that our world faces that necessitate. Here you have two adjective clauses beginning with that and that. It's a little bit more complex structure because you have two adjective clauses together, but again, nothing too serious because both of these adjective clauses are referring to the word challenges. So you still have a complex sentence essentially. Adverb clause, if, although, but, if, although, because, when, etc. These are showing a relationship between the independent clause and the dependent clause. If I wake up early, I can do some sports activities. It's a complex sentence, but a little bit basic, then you're not going to get too many extra points for that. A lot of people use these structures. While this may be true, ... when it comes to something. These are a bit fixed clauses. You have two adverb clauses, but again, a little bit of a basic sentence because these particular structures are commonly used. So this is a thing you have to remember. When it comes to complexity on the test, and this is especially for those of you who want to get the higher scores. 7, you don't need as much, but 7.5, 8, you definitely need to have some complex structures, not just complex sentences. And another thing you need to remember, most people who use complex sentences, they're using adjective clauses with which or that. They're using adverb clauses with because, although, if, and they're not using many noun clauses. Noun clauses, for some reason, people just don't like. But I'll show you the common ones in a second. So again, if you think you're getting complexity by using an adjective clause with which or that, that's not what the graders are looking for. That's minimum expectation. To get to the higher scores, they want some more complexity. Again, noun clause, everybody uses that. Convinced that, said that, asked that, found that. The recent research at this university found that something, something. These are all noun clauses. That's all very good and well. This one, dictating what learners must study as an object, a little bit less common, but still a little bit basic. I don't see noun clauses enough in essays. Try to use noun clauses. Try to use a noun clause as a subject rather than an object or a complement in a sentence. That's much more rare, and that will be a little bit more impressive to the graders. I'll make a video about noun clauses as well. Now, let's look at the complex structures. So there are a few sentence types that are considered complex structures. The non-standard sentences: inversion, causative, subjunctive, and passive. I think most people know the passive, but if you're not sure, here's a link to another video I made about the passive. And I'll give you some examples of, before that, I'm going to talk about the embedded clauses after. That's the focus here. Inversion. Inversion is when you're putting the subject, you're inverting the subject and the verb. So the verb comes before the subject, but it's not a question. Not only would deregulation encourage, ... So that's an inversion. Subjunctive. This is why. It is important when you have this structure. It is adjective followed by a that clause or noun clause. All trainers be tested, not are tested. Even though we have trainers, I'm using the verb be. Okay, that's called the subjunctive. I also made a video about that. You can link to is there as well. And the causative. Some people believe that parents should make their children take. So parents is the subject, should make their children, and then you have another verb. You have the causative verb right here. So this is a different type of structure. So these you should definitely know how to use, and you should definitely try to use in your essays if you want the higher scores. But what I recommend and what you should be practicing in terms of complexity, in terms of showing your ability to use complex structures in your writing, is embedded clauses. These are clauses inside other clauses. And these are very, I wouldn't say they're difficult, they're tricky. Okay, and if you're just learning English, they're a little bit confusing sometimes. Now, the reason you should practice these is not only so you can use them in your own writing, but these will help you very, very much in the reading sections, or just reading in English at all. When you go to the States or Canada or the UK or Australia, and you will go to university, you will be doing a lot of reading. And you're gonna see, this is a very common part of formal writing, of academic writing, or actually any writing. Very important to know. So let's start, we're gonna build our way up. Students who focus on the STEM fields tend to secure higher paying jobs after graduation. I have a simple, complex sentence here, a basic complex sentence here. Students who focus, adjective clause, identifying, all good and well. In case you're curious, STEM, science, technology, engineering, maths, okay? Students who focus on the STEM fields tend to secure higher paying jobs after graduation, though the demand for creative thinkers is on the rise. Adjective clause, adverb clause, this is still a basic complex sentence. I have one independent clause. I have one independent clause, I have two dependent clauses. Okay, it's not a complex structure yet. Okay, so all of this is building up to this. This is an example of a paragraph. This is a paragraph, it's from an example essay that was sent to me to check. Now, this is not the original. I fixed a few things. I made some changes to make it the English okay. But I want you to look at this. I'll show you the original in a minute. This writer will get points, at least for making the attempt at the embedded clauses. Some other errors here and there, but the embedded clause he actually got correct. Let's look at this. So first of all, take a moment, press pause on your video player and try to understand what's going on here. How many clauses do you see? What is the independent clause of this sentence, okay? When you're ready, press play and we'll start. This is supported by a recent study. Okay, very simple sentence. There's your independent clause. That was conducted. Now, that was, we take it out. So technically, what we're left here with is a participle, not a full clause. So we're not going to count that as a clause. A study that was conducted at Oxford University. Now, there's your full independent clause. In which, okay, a recent study and the identifying adjective clause, so it's all part of the noun phrase, in which, so in this study, we're beginning an adjective clause. They claim, the people who conducted the study, obviously, that. Now they claim what? That, beginning a noun clause, so we had an adjective clause here, we're starting a noun clause here. Noun clause object to the verb claim. As China increasingly imports. So as is also a conjunction, an adverb conjunction, that as something happens, something else will happen. From different countries, the level of carbon dioxide rises sharply. So this is the independent clause of the dependent clause beginning with as, and the whole thing is part of the noun clause. I'll do a separate video for embedded clauses. I know this makes people a little bit crazy. I'll do that separately. And that. So now I have another noun clause, also part of the claim, okay? Claim that one and that two. So you have a compound object to claim. Both objects are presented as noun clauses. Inevitably, more Chinese people are suffering from asthma. So I have four clauses in here. I have one participle, but you'll notice that this whole thing is one sentence. One sentence with clauses inside clauses. That's the embedded clause. This is a very complex structure. And if you can do this and do it well, you'll definitely get points, okay? Now, I'm going to come back to this idea in a second. Just let me erase this for you. Now, this is the original. You can see there were other mistakes, for example. Now, I just want to make sure you understand. Done is not incorrect. Conducted is just a better word. That's why I changed it. Here, where? We're not talking about Oxford University. We're talking about the study. So a study is not a place, so where is incorrect. But they claim that as, and, well, didn't get the second and, but he almost got it. He will get some benefit for the attempt. Of course, he will lose other points. He has, for example, varieties. He probably meant varieties. Eatable, edible, different words. Dioxide is one word, has risen. Again, he's losing points other places, but he'll get some benefit of the doubt from the graders for the attempted embedded clause. Practice it, and I'll talk to you in 1 second about how to do that and what you should or shouldn't do. Okay, here's one more thing I want to do. This is the last example. Fast food. So we're talking about how to introduce complex structures. So when you find yourself writing paragraphs and you have a lot of simple sentences, simple sentence, simple sentence, simple sentence, generally speaking, you're probably repeating words, or you have redundancies, and there are things that you can squeeze together using complex sentences or complex structures to remove the simple sentences and to reduce the word count. For example, fast food is becoming markedly popular in many countries. Okay. Because it is convenient and cheap, people tend to prefer junk food. So, okay, essentially you have two sentences repeating something. If it is becoming popular, then obviously people prefer junk food. Basically, this means the exact same thing. You can get rid of one and squeeze the two. You already have the clause, the because. Just make the first and second sentences one sentence. Already you have a complex sentence. And then you have all these other things. So you notice I have 5 sentences, and you can, again, press pause and look at everything slowly and carefully. I have 5 sentences with 81 words. So what I did, I reduced this to 3 sentences, and I got rid of 10 words by doing so. And I have a little bit more complexity. If you really want to go all the way, I made this into 2 sentences with 66 words. Now, from this word, from regular until blood pressure is 1 sentence. Do I recommend that you do this? No, absolutely not. Do not try to write sentences like this in your essay. First of all, it's very easy to get lost along the way and make mistakes. Second of all, it's just not comfortable for a person to read a sentence this long. It's correct, but it's not a good sentence. But what I do want you to do, what I do recommend as an exercise, is try to write sentences like this in practice, okay? Find your sample essays that you've written in the past. Try to take your paragraphs and squish them, squeeze them into shorter paragraphs. Fewer sentences, fewer words, same message. Don't get rid of any information. Keep the information, get rid of the number of sentences, get rid of the number of words. That should be your exercise. Also, just go into textbooks, especially academic textbooks. Look for sentences like this, very long sentences with lots of embedded clauses, and then start picking them apart. Identify the independent clauses, identify all the dependent clauses, identify all the relationships, and then rewrite it in simple sentences or put them all back together as a complex sentence. Get to understand what's working with what. And I will make a separate video about embedded clauses. I know it's a very difficult and tricky thing for a lot of people to do. It shouldn't be, but it is, so I'll help you guys with that, okay? And that's it. Complex sentences, complex structures. Make sure you know the different inversions, subjunctive, causative, etc. Make sure you do a lot of practice reading, dissect or analyze sentences, squeeze your simple sentences together, and just practice, 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 reading, 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 okay? If you have any questions about any of this, please ask me in the YouTube comment section. Don't forget to like each other's questions and comments, try to answer them. Again, I'll take the most popular questions at the end of the month and make a video answer for them. And until then, if you like this video, please give me a like, subscribe to my channel, come back next week for another, hopefully, useful lesson, okay? See you again. Bye-bye.